The average Canadian home costs somewhere north of $700,000. In Iroquois Falls, Ontario, there's a 3-bedroom bungalow listed right now for $38,888. Not a down payment. The whole house. And before you tell me that has to be a scam, a typo, a shed with a mailbox, understand that the listing has an address, a bedroom count, and a real estate portal standing behind it. Here is what those numbers actually mean. In most of this country, you're bidding against 6 other people for a semi-detached box with a leaking roof. In these 8 towns, nobody is bidding at all. The houses are real, the streets are ploughed, and the schools are open. There is a hospital, or at least a clinic. What there isn't anymore is the mill, because every single one of these towns was built around one employer, one company, one plant, one payroll, and in every single one of them, that company walked. 1971, 2006, 2009, 2014, 2024. Different decades, same letter to the same kind of town. 8 of them, from the most expensive to the cheapest. And I want you to stay for the last one because the company that shut it down is the same company that built it, Newfoundland. $119,000 for 15 Tucker Place, a 3-bedroom, 1-bathhouse, 1,176 square feet, built in 1975, listed with Royal LePage and verified on the 11th of July, 2026. That is the most expensive property on this list, and it is still less than 1/6 of the national average. The mill here ran for 100 years. In 2008, Abitibi Bowater announced it would close the Grand Falls-Windsor paper mill for good, and in 2009 the machine stopped. A century of newsprint finished in a boardroom. Now here is where I have to be straight with you, because this is the one town on the list that is not collapsing. Grand Falls-Windsor peaked at 14,693 people back in 1991. Today it holds about 13,853. That is a slow bleed, not a freefall. It still has regional services, it still has a hospital, and it is still a functioning central Newfoundland town. So what you are buying here is not a ghost story. It is something stranger. A town that survived losing its reason to exist, and whose houses never got the message that it survived. Northern Ontario, $105,000 for 59 4th Street, a 2-bedroom detached bungalow with a full basement. The timeline in this town is brutal, and it is worth hearing in order. On the 31st of July, 2006, Tembec idled the market pulp mill. Idled. That word carries hope in it, and the workers went home and waited. Then, on the 5th of December that same year, 4 months later, Tembec closed it permanently. So the town got to spend one autumn believing it might come back. Smooth Rock Falls peaked in 1976 at 2,446 people. Today, around 1,200. Half the town leaves, and the half that stays owns houses that the market has stopped pricing seriously. $105,000 for a detached house with a yard in a country arguing about a housing crisis. The honest drawback here is distance. The town is small and remote, and while basic services exist, specialist care and a real job market both mean a long drive. You're not buying a discount on a house. You're buying a discount on a life that has fewer options in it. The next town on the list is still waiting to hear whether its mill is dead or just sleeping. The shutdown happened in 2024, and nobody has said the word permanent yet. On the north shore of Lake Superior, $99,900 for 29 Parkway Place, a 4-bedroom bi-level built in 1985. 4 bedrooms, under $100,000 on Lake Superior. If that sentence does not make you tilt your head, check your pulse. And the reason is recent, which is what makes Terrace Bay different from everything else on this list. In January of 2024, AV Terrace Bay idled the pulp mill. Not demolished, not sold for scrap. Idled, with no clear date to restart. The CBC reported hundreds of workers out of work. That distinction matters, and I'm not going to blur it for a better story. This mill is not gone. It is paused. Which means the people of Terrace Bay are living inside the worst version of a question, the one where nobody will tell you yes and nobody will tell you no. The town peaked in 1996 at 2,324. It holds about 1,528 now. Would you buy a 4-bedroom house on the greatest lake in North America, knowing the entire local economy is currently holding its breath? That is the actual trade, and it is not a bargain. It is a bet. Also Lake Superior, an hour down the highway. $99,000 for 95 Yorkie Avenue, a two-bedroom house of 664 square feet, built in 1948, with an oil furnace and a detached garage, listed through Royal LePage. 664 square feet. That is smaller than a lot of apartments in Toronto that rent for $3,000 a month. Here it is a whole house, with a garage and a lot, for $99,000. Marathon Pulp announced an indefinite shutdown on the 12th of February 2009, and bankruptcy finished the job that same year. The town peaked in 1996 at 4,791 people. It holds about 3,138 today, roughly a third of the town gone. A marathon is not a wasteland, which I have to say plainly. It sits on Lake Superior, it has services, it has scenery that people drive across a continent to photograph. The cheap house is a symptom of the mill, not of the place. Those are two different things, and confusing them is how people end up buying regret. Vancouver Island, the far northwest coast, $99,000. Stop there for a second because I want you to notice something. $99,000 is the exact same number as the town I just showed you, and those two places are 4,000 kilometers apart, on opposite coasts of the same country. Nobody coordinated that. It is just what the floor looks like when the mill leaves. Now, the honest part, and I am putting it up front rather than burying it. The Port Alice listing is not a detached house. It is a ground floor condo apartment, 2 bedrooms, about 800 square feet, with strata fees and a lease running into February. It is the weakest property fit on this list, and I am telling you that instead of letting you find out later. But Port Alice earns its place for another reason entirely, and it is the ugliest number here. The town peaked in 1981 at 1,668 people. Today there are about 739. 56% of this community does not come back. The Newcell Specialty Cellulose operation was curtailed in 2015, and by 2019 the mill owner was in insolvency proceedings. Port Alice is what the end of the line actually looks like, and it looks like a fjord with a view and nobody left to enjoy it. Back to Northern Ontario, deep in it. $65,000 for 201 3rd Avenue, a detached 3-bedroom bungalow on a full lot. Hornepayne starts as a railway settlement in 1915, when the Canadian Northern Railway puts a divisional point in the bush and calls it Fitzback. Rail built it, then timber kept it. Then, in 2015, the Olav Havelsrud sawmill closed, and the CBC reported the shutdown. In a town of this size, one sawmill is not an employer, it is the employer. The peak was 1,850 people. Statistics Canada counted 968 residents in 2021. Nearly half the town, gone, and the arithmetic of that is simple. When the mill goes, the young leave first, then the school shrinks, then the store closes, then the next family decides. There is a hospital in Hornepayne, and I want to be accurate about what that means. It is a community facility, basic by design. Anything serious puts you on a very long road to somewhere else. $65,000 for a 3-bedroom bungalow is a real number, and so is that road. $60,000 for 17 Lamaria Street, a 5-bedroom, 2-story house of 1,460 square feet, listed as a handyman special. 5 bedrooms, $60,000. In most Canadian cities, that number does not cover the land transfer tax and the lawyer on a starter condo. Here it is a 5-bedroom house on a 50-foot lot. And yes, handyman special means what you think it means. The price is the entrance fee, not the total. Kapuskasing was a model town, planned and built around the paper mill, and it hit 12,834 people in 1971. Statistics Canada counted 8,057 in 2021. And the story here is not finished, which is the part that makes it hurt. In 2025, Cap Paper announced it was idling production at the Kapuskasing paper mill. That was last year. This is not history, this is happening while you watch. So when I say the housing market never recovers, understand what I mean. Kapuskasing has been absorbing this blow for 50 years, and it is still taking punches. The hospital is local, the specialists are in Timmins, a long drive east, $38,888, 493 Church Street, a detached 3-bedroom bungalow, described as a fixer-upper, with the cellar open to a vendor take-back mortgage. That last detail is worth sitting with. A vendor take-back mortgage means the seller is willing to lend you the money to buy the house from them, because finding a buyer with a bank behind them is that hard. The house is cheaper than a new pickup truck, and the owner is still offering to finance it for you. Now the history, because Iroquois Falls does not just belong at the bottom of this list, it belongs at the end of the story. In 1912, the Abitibi Power and Paper Company founded this town. Founded it. The mill did not come to Iroquois Falls. Iroquois Falls was built to serve the mill street by street, house by house, a company town in the purest sense. It peaked at 7,271 people in 1971. Then, in 2014, Resolute Forest Products announced the permanent closure of the mill. Resolute is what Abitibi eventually became, through a century of mergers and rebrandings. Read that again slowly. The corporate bloodline that invented this town is the same one that finally closed it, 102 years later. 4,418 people still live there. The hospital is local but small, and serious care means driving north. And on Church Street, a bungalow with 3 bedrooms waits for someone at $38,888, with the seller ready to carry the loan. That is the image I cannot shake. Not the ruins, because there are no ruins. The lawns are cut. The lights are on. It is a house on an ordinary street in a town that a corporation drew on a map, filled with people, and then erased from its balance sheet, and the house is still standing there, at a price that says nobody expects anyone to come. A country that cannot house its own children in its cities, and a string of towns where the houses are already built, already standing, already empty of the industry that raised them. Both of those are Canada, right now, at the same time. The question is not whether these prices are real, because the listings are open in a browser tab. The question is what a country does with the places it already built and then walked away from. So tell me below, which one of these 8 would you actually move to in February when the mill is closed and the lake is frozen? And if you want to know which region gets taken apart next, subscribe, because there are a lot more company towns than there are companies left.